Annette, thank you so much for joining us. We are very honored that you could be here, Butterfly Ventures could be here. And without much ado, I would say if we could go back a little bit in the background before we go into the core subject of the topics so that the audience can know about you. What attracted you to startups, angel investing, and venture capital? Let's go there for a minute.
All right. Okay. So this is a rather long story, though, but I tried to just take some snippets out of it. I've been a tech investor for over 30 years, and this would have been an angel investment. So it started with my husband and I, who had an innovation where we felt that, a software solution to a product, to a hardware thing that didn't do anything, that needed to have something going on. So that's what we did. And we call it door to PC. It was very easy. It was pre Windows because I needed to get into a computer. And then it was also a calculation document. And we sold that to a Swedish company that was partly owned by an American firm in the US. So we went over there to sort of release the company. I mean, this was like a 4-year thing. So and we weren't really working hard at it. We just tried to make money on it. So we didn't know what to do. It was mainly my husband who did he did the software, the graphical user interface and so forth. So it's actually just a software on hardware. And that ended up being fax on demand. So it was like an e-commerce over a phone switch. So it's really to simplify everything. And we went to the US to release the company. We had 2 small kids. So, after a while, I went with him and I said, if you're going to be there, let's go together instead, and then move back home during midsummer. But already this was by the shift of the year 93, 94. I felt that it was really, why would we go home and shovel snow if we could live in a subtropical environment? So we ended up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and spent 17 years there. We continued to work with this company as well. We developed it. So it became then also that we sort of a trade sell, even though we sold it from the beginning, but we continued to work with them instead. And then I did real estate, and I did a lot of other things, of course, because it's not only one thing you do. There's a lot of things you do when you're an entrepreneur. And I did also some really badass recruiting in between 98 and 2000, because it was the Y2K kind of thing. Nobody knew what's going to happen. If the airplanes would actually fall down the sky when it turned New Year, so 2000. You guys, you maybe don't know it, but several of you are probably as old as I am, so you probably remember it. And I made badass money on it because everybody needed to have C++ developers or core developers. So it was really, really an interesting period. You didn't know that you were in a bubble until you realized, hey, this is a bubble. Okay, I'm going to make as much as I can. And then we've been dabbling around with all other kinds of things. We have a hardware solution for a Malaysian telecom operator. So we tend to do hardware and then with software solutions, because that's easy to sort of productify. And that's been the core thing that my husband and I have been doing. So we've been working together for a long time. And then when we moved back to Sweden in 2010, I didn't really know what to do when I came back. If you're gone 17 years and you don't have that much of a relation with Sweden or doing business in Sweden, it becomes exactly, Susanne been away for 25 plus years. It is really not complicated, but you need to find where you fit in. And then, I found this network through Tillväxtverket, who had a women entrepreneur kind of drive. And I met with a couple of people there that introduced me to Stockholm Business Angels. And they were setting up they had just set up their first fund. So I participated in that fund because I felt that this is a network with really, people that are sort of know what they're doing. They were old, so I felt that they had a good network, and it was a bunch of old guys, of course. But it was a good environment to participate in and to find sort of where do I fit in, and obviously communication. And I went to RMI Berghs in Sweden before we left in the 80s, so I'm a communication kind of person. projektledare, olika PL. And so it became sort of natural for me to then also be the one who was lifting Stoaf with all these old guys into the future, having them participate as me on a panel. This was 2013, 2014 when Sub 46 started. So I participated in a lot of panels talking about, early stage investing. Why would you be an angel? Why should you be an angel? Why would you apply for angel capital, for example? And which this is part of this theme. But that's something that I've been doing for quite some time then, though, also because I've been pitching money into things that I believe in. And that's also a sort of why do I invest in early stage investments? It's like, well, because I see an opportunity, or I see a technology kind of lift, not understanding, but trying to understand the future to see where we are going. We all look into science fiction movies and Star Trek and all that stuff. So we know that there is technology that we are sort of aspiring to because, flip phone, Star Trek, there was a lot of different things that was happening then. So trying to understand all the people in the future are skinny. So we need to find food that sort of is proportioned to you, not rather to that it's food because you can enjoy food because we're humans and we like taste and flavors and all kinds of how it feels and so forth. So it's like really interesting. So trying to understand that and trying then also to put sort of the technical kind of pole a little bit further on, stretching a little bit, not necessarily be the best timing ever, but trying to find if there is a timing and how much effort you should put into it, or if you should actually do something else that is understandable for the market, which is also one of the topics today. So it's like all the stuff that I've been doing. So I participated in both funds for Stoaf. And then when the third fund came in 2013, I met Tanya Morvan Horowitz, who's one of the GPs at Butterfly. She then had a US-based small angel fund called Cap A. So she needed to be introduced to the US system. And I was coming back from the US and from the same coast that she was brought up, very close to her hometown. And she's been in New York as a New York banker. And we sort of networked likewise, schmoozing with people, trying to get people talk to you, being awkward at a table, not knowing anyone, and go like, okay, hey, should we talk? And so forth, because I've been in the US for so long and been networking so much. So we sort of did the same thing. And she always felt that meeting was super odd when we ended up in a Swedish meeting because all the Swedes were so silent. No one wanted to speak English. And then it goes like, no, it was a really good meeting. We had a good conversation from a Swedish perspective. And then in 2016, I became a venture partner and been a venture partner, which means I'm scouting companies and ventures for them, and continue to invest in collaborations. And then I created a couple of joint ventures where I invest together with other angels. We have two of them called Venture Co-Invest. And that was during COVID through Kretzer Forum Nordics, which is a network that is sort of I would say it's resting a little bit right now, but it's very active in the rest of the world. Kretzer has over 4,000 angels, so it's not a small network, but it's mainly in the US, I would say, that they're in Canada, that they're active. And then so it's sort of what I've been doing. And now I invested in Butterfly. So
like that's I don't know, that's so much experience kind of compressed into 7 minutes. And like I'm amazed, like, and but I'm trying to, I don't know, I was trying to make these points when we are having these fireside chats with leaders like you, like where is the focus? So I kind of started writing that when you talked about that you'd like to learn about future science fiction, Star Treks. Yesterday I watched a Star Trek which was a combination. So what attracted me there was they had this holodeck, and in that they were running how would you say, an holodeck version of Sherlock Holmes. So future, so movies are a great place to learn about
Yeah,
future, and of course somebody is thinking, but they are thinking in the movie dimension, not
exactly.
in a
But
startup direction. Yeah.
no, but also if you think it or you dream
Mhm.
around it, that's just like that's the first step to become some or
Exactly.
do something different. If you go like, hey, wait a minute, if you can harvest, crop whatever movie that you're looking to, that you can actually crop in a tent in Mars, you can actually have a function air system, you can actually do this depending on where the manure coming from or where the water is coming
Yeah.
from. That's just a side point. But it's like, if you can do that in a really confined, strange environment, then you can do a lot of things. And you can do, I mean, there's just, then if you can dream it, I'm thinking you can do it. So if we
Right.
can dream that we can fly with, electrical airplanes, we know that they work. It's just a matter of opportunity of having, how can you commercialize that? It's like the same thing we're talking about in scaling in technology. Whatever, if can you scale that, then you think, but what is scaling? Is that, should every company be scaled at scale? Or should it just be like a really, really good venture that is really creating jobs and creating a good, healthy ecosystem where you live? You don't really need to scale everything you have. It could be a really, really badass machine if you just have,
Yeah.
the understanding of what the machine is. So it's really, it's a lot of cool things to take inspiration from.
Absolutely. And then I think startups and entrepreneurship, they have kind of become vehicles for imagination.
Mhm.
So we have created, how would you say, a method. So human race has created a method on how to take ideas into
Yeah,
domains of influence so they can change life and drive
yeah.
us forward. So I
Mhm.
think entrepreneurship is the bridge. And that's where I think when we are assessing early stage startups as well, the biggest thing is like, are they solving something which is big, massive, and interesting and real? Is it
Mhm.
so it's more than a line they just typed out in a word processor? It needs to be a real need out there or a
Yeah,
problem out there which
yeah.
needs a massively creative solution as well. And then
Well,
somebody.
and it's also, if you're working in a field, which I think
Mm,
is usually the best way. I needed a solution to myself because I need to be able to enter computer. For everyone here, it's like, of course, it's just a tap, start, and it starts. Yeah, but it was DOS. You had to code to
yeah.
be able to get some shit out of it, and it was like impossible. And I'm not really a very slow person doing everything very cautiously. I'm just running like a mad woman trying to understand and want to fix stuff, and then I'm done, and then can toss it over my shoulder and I can run
Mm,
away and do something else instead. And I think that's the sort of the system needs to be pumping information, and a lot of people are starters, but not necessarily the ones that are harvesting the fruits out of it, because that's another portion of the people mass that are really enjoying of just like growing stuff slowly, understanding the rhythm, working
yeah.
the company in itself. And it's over 60% of those mankind that are actually the ones that are keeping things in order, where you have all these other people that are just super, away up in the sky as high kites, but not necessarily on drugs. And then you have the ones that are doing shit and putting things, to go, but not necessarily have the interest of keeping it burning. So it's like we are different kind of people, and you as a person, as an entrepreneur, if you have a bunch of good ideas that you want to continue to do. You just need to find the right collaborating partner, because you can't do anything alone. It doesn't make any sense to do stuff alone. You need to do it in groups, and you need to make sure that you have like-minded people around you, or people that challenge you, that ask you if this is really something that you should pursue or not, or if this is something that you should consider, or if this is just a learning process and now you need to move on to the next thing. I mean, I'm looking into science-based innovation, which is like,
Mm,
wow, it
mm.
takes forever to get something going, and it's a bunch of nerds doing it. But I'm a nerd myself, so I really enjoy the opportunity that they have the capacity of looking into small dinky details to be able to get this result, because we want to have IP or IPR or something that we can have in our portfolio to, if something go down the drain, which is usually does. So, but it's a
Got it.
lot of interesting things that you can do with understanding who you are as an entrepreneur, and
Mm,
what people you need around you. I usually say that you need to be around 4 people. but you can sort of clone yourself, and you can be, you can be 2, but you can't be 4. So you need to be the entrepreneur, you need to be the innovator, you need to be the administrator, and you need to be the communicator. So you need to be able to have these different people so you can get the full scope together. Someone that runs the idea is the entrepreneur, not necessarily the innovator. And then, you can be the communicator and the innovator, or the entrepreneur and the communicator, but you can't be also the administrator, because that's a lot of other skills that you need to have. So it's like, try to find these different, I'm an astrologer, so I love
Yeah, I
to go
know.
into.
No, but this
Oh,
is awesome. This is awesome, and there's so much, like, again, a lot of insight coming for our community. And I think the point that you first made about, like, we are different as people, I think that's the beauty of human race.
yes,
We kind of tend to forget it, and we try to fit everybody in the same box, but we are
yeah,
different. So some
yeah,
people do things differently, and one should not force oneself to be like another person. So you should
no,
find your own rhythm, as you're
yeah,
saying. And
yeah,
the other point that you mentioned was also very important, like, you cannot do it alone.
no,
Like, that's also something, like, alone you can probably go this long, but together you can do things together, you can refine your ideas together. There are influences which are needed in early stage ventures, which, if you are a team, uh, is the best way to go forward. However, one thing, like, some point over there, like, in the last 1 year with AI coming in, what has started happening, there's a new breed of solopreneurs that are
yeah,
developing. So there's a new narrative right now
yeah,
in the digital community, which is taking a kind of stance on that you can actually build ventures as solopreneurs, because you have all these amazing virtual co-pilots with you,
yes,
and these
true.
co-pilots will start flying things. So wherever you are weak, you can have the administrative co-pilot, you can have a
Yeah, mhm,
go-to-market co-pilot, and
yeah.
then, so, but anyway, that's a different discussion.
No, but I think that's interesting though. But it depends on what you're doing. I'm not
Exactly.
investing in SaaS or marketing or anything like that. That's not what we do. We do hardware, and I always have hardware connected, software components, robotics, AI, whatever it is connected to some hardware component. But one of the things now for me, and also for Butterfly, is to make sure that and it's been for the whole time, is that it needs to be a sustainable future. Why do innovation that is bad for the environment or for humans? Why don't invest your time and your money into something that is actually for a better world or a better future? So that's sort of, it needs to be sustainable innovation. If it's digitalization or whatever, it could be cleaning up water and whatever, that's really what we need to do. But there's a bunch of things that has been done for a very, very, very long time that are, you know, depleting earth, and it's not a liksom ongoing source of stuff. It's like it's an ending kind of way, and we are all aware of it, but it seems like some of us are still pumping. What is it, what did he said, the sheik in at COP? I'm going to pump 110% oil because nobody else is going to be. I'm going to be the last oil company on earth. And everybody goes like, what? You're at COP. What the hell?
Annette, really good points. I would say, let's talk about a little bit about Butterfly Ventures. We have a couple of questions coming in, and I'll
Mhm.
request our community which has joined in today. Please put in your questions. This is going to be a very rapid session. We'll be closing at around 12, so we still have half an hour of massive discussion time. So, Annette, tell us a little bit about Butterfly Ventures. Like, what is your focus? I was checking your website. It says that 80% of the startups are pre-revenue.
Yeah.
That's a very
I
bold
know
statement. I
you
was just
love that.
thinking, no, 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 yeah, I love it. And I was thinking, like, oh, I need to fact check that. Can that actually be true? Because most
Mm,
VCs, especially in today's environment, they're saying revenue, revenue, revenue,
yeah,
business order, profitability, profitability. Weak startups, go away. So I think
right.
that's the narrative that is building in the last 1.5 year or so.
Yeah.
But tell us about Butterfly Ventures and what's your focus of investment and why you go early.
Right.
That's the
Okay.
question.
So Butterfly Ventures, this is the fourth fund that we have. So we have done 92 investments. We're on our 94th because we have two pending. And then we have done about 270 rounds of investments in those companies. So usually when we go in, like you said, pre-revenue, we don't really want everyone to be pre-revenue. It would be great if they had revenue, but we're looking into market fit. And market fit is what is the most important thing for us, to make sure that you actually have tested the thing that you have, the solution or whatever it is that you're doing, and then adding it together with a partner, for example. As you've been doing a pilot with someone, a larger corporation, we usually do industrial innovation. So it's not that we're doing, we don't only invest in hardware, science-based hardware, with software components. And that could be materials, it could be robotics, it could be AI, it could be other added things, or it could be like in a whole plethora joint in something that is shifting the industry how it's been done before. Some kind of weird, but it's sort of understandable for us, I think. But this fourth fund that we have is also sustainable fund. So we are classified SFDR8, which means that we have to have both the company in itself and the solution to be sustainable, including ourselves. So it's about traveling, it's about expensive using Earth, and then also what is shifting into what they're shifting the industry they're doing. So we're investing in about 10 companies a year, I would say. We are doing 30 plus in this fund, and we're on our 12th now, so we have a couple of opportunities left. We go in with an early ticket, so we can go in with between 200 to 500,000 euros as a start ticket. We prefer, or we can take lead if there is an opportunity for the ventures to go in. We've done a bunch of good investments down in Gothenburg through my early connections with, Connect West. So it's like the network that's been working or growing down there for a bunch of years has started other things as well. And I think that the most interesting innovation that we're looking into is actually, it needs to be a large market. So it needs to be, because we're the first VC that comes into a company, it becomes really not complicated, but it becomes more complicated. If you have angels in your company already, which you usually have, you have somewhat, structure of the shareholder agreement, and you have some kind of structure in your board, and you're working towards being more professional. But when a VC comes in, and we would be the first then usually to come in, it becomes even more structured. It becomes even more reporting. So, which is because we need to report to our LPs, our limited partners that have invested in our funds, which are usually pension funds or larger family office or government money, for example. So it becomes, I would say that it's more administration when we come in for the company, but it's also more money. And when the money comes in, it's not only one batch. As an angel, usually you have, maybe you have 500,000 Swedish krona, like 50,000 euro. And then you don't have any more money for that company. But we earmark money for every company that comes in, and we have a threshold. And then we know in the end, we might have 3, hopefully 4 or 5 companies that are really, really good companies in this fund of 30 plus companies that we can actually then add in maybe up to 1.5 million euros as a, push into a Series A, or perhaps even all the way into a small amount in a Series B. But the goal is to start early. So we have both the valuation on the company. We also have a group of the innovators and the group, the founders group in itself, are eager to move forward, and we are interested in seeing them moving forward and be successful. We still have a time limit. We still have a fund that is from start to end, it's like 10 years. So when we invest now, we need to start working on an exit, 6, 7, 8 years from now, to make sure that we actually have an exit. So there is an exit plan strategy in our term sheet. There is all the board and everybody that is already on board in the company needs to shift a little bit in their mindset of who will be the owner or who will be the giver. We would like to give more shares back to the company rather than having people that are not investing. And sometimes we do a reconstruction on the shareholder agreement, and we do reconstruction on ownership, and we take, if there is passive people, we'd like to take the passive people out, so we can actually have those shares working with, you know, new crew coming in, or a new CFO if that is needed, or a CEO that is going to take the company to the next level. But everything is not a hostile takeover, goddamn it. It's like still under, you know, normal forms. And we try to be on the same page from the beginning, sort of ironing out all the challenges or the things that would be irritating for someone. So if we are getting upset with each other, we can always go back and say, hey, when we were friends, this is what we came across to, and this is what we're working to. And I say this to you, all of you that are in the meeting, that this is one of the most important things you do. And you to be having a contract prior to you doing things, even though you have your best friend or you're working with your husband or whoever it is, you need to make sure that you're doing this professionally. So you actually are using all the resources and so forth. And we all have ego. We all get irritated for certain things, or upset or sad because we're pushed out or whatever. But it's also about, in this game, it's all about tenacity.
Yeah.
If you don't understand that creating a venture or a company takes a lot of time, it's not going to be a 2-year or 3-year kind of gig, and then you're going to get a millionaire, because then you want to do certain other things and so forth, because life happens. This is something that is an ongoing process, and it could be ongoing for, 20 years, and you still feel like Klarna. They probably still feel like they're a startup, but they've been doing it for 15 plus years, and it's the same founder. So you really need to have a mindset, and you need to have a personal coach as well. Someone, that's why it's good to not only have a partner, but a speaking partner too, where you can actually talk on tough things. Have someone that you can discuss certain things with, that doesn't do that you're an idiot or something like that, rather that you become stronger. So a personal coach for your mind, for example, would be a good thing, because this is a growth process, and then you will understand that maybe this is not for me. So then to step aside and not continue to be the CEO, but continue to be the entrepreneur instead, or the innovator in the company, and make sure that the company is going the way that you want to. That was a lot of information, but I don't know.
No, but that's really important, because I think when we were showing the connect stages as well, when you're really early, you're also unstructured, and that being unstructured at that stage is good, because you're trying to see validation. You're trying to see if the idea that you initially had needs to change. But then once you start coming to structured capital from angels and then later from VCs, that's where it starts becoming a business. And then business needs agreements. When you go out and talk to somebody else, it's good to have your house in order first internally. And that's why the business needs to be structured. So I think this is very natural part. And and I think the dilemma for founders is that they have seen a very early stage imagination or ideation, and then the more it zooms into a structured business, some people feel kind of tied up with that. Like,
Right.
this was a free
And
flowing.
or not. I think that there's several investors that have said that are doing I've said before, and that I listen, go into a company and I pay to play, that I invest, and then I sort of make myself obsolete. So I have to be in the company and becoming some kind of sales and marketing or whatever it is. And then I sort of invoice back the amount that I've invested into the company, but still valid to it. I've done that to several companies that I'm also sharing right now. So it's sort of, it becomes something that, no, but we want you to continue to stay. So it's more of like a joy for the innovation in itself, or a joy over the opportunity of freak it, we will be able to do this. It's like, this is going to, if we just hold on a little bit longer, the market will actually come back into it in a warp, and we will, all of a sudden, we will make sense to a lot of people. So, and that's happening, but it's a lot of work. So it's not easy to do.
Yeah, of course. And I think the media narrative on the other side is that suddenly you see, okay, this startup got 5 million second funding, another startup got, it was like a few months ago that they just
Mm.
came up with an idea. So I think media kind of shortens our
Yeah.
understanding span. So it really is a long haul you are in with entrepreneurship. I think there are no shortcuts, and you need to be prepared for the long game. So
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
understanding.
Well.
Let's take a few questions here as well.
Mm.
So Annie has a question. What's the hardest part of being an investor when so many companies are looking for investment? I imagine you get a lot of people trying to contact you. Yes.
Yes. No, but it's sort of a filtering process. So it's more of like I understand that that it's interesting to have someone to bounce your idea with, and that's sort of the networks that you're creating also, Naimul. Nordic. Whatever, I totally forgot the names now, but all these Nordic things that you're doing.
Yeah.
Those all these venture when you can pop in and you can showcase and you can test your idea, for example. Antler has ideation,
Mm,
Connect has that as well, and Founder Institute has it as well, that you can participate in that and get the feedback that you need, not necessarily from me.
mm,
But I've narrowed down more and more over what I
true.
invest in. And then if I know someone in the area where you guys are having your innovation, for example, I usually then make sure that I actually forward them to someone that makes sense to them when it comes to money. But that depends also on the stage of the innovation.
Mm,
So we met, this is just an example yesterday. Me and Tanya was in a meeting with
mm,
a Norwegian startup, and we do invest in Nordics and the Baltics. So it's all the whatever 9 countries or whatever it is. And so they came back, they met with Tanya probably 2 years ago, and now they
mm,
have received a really nice amount of money. But they really would like to have someone else that are doing hardware. So they asked us to, do a check-in with them. And all of a sudden we go like, hey, what happened? Well, we got an investor that came in with an infusion, but for them to actually participate in the company, they had a 12-step program. So it's like an AA kind of thing for entrepreneurs. You
mm,
shouldn't, focus on this. Maybe we should have 2 products and not
mm,
45. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do coastal area. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do that. So all of a sudden they were so focused and they were so business like, these guys that was the same people, they probably have the same shirts on, that we had 2 years ago. But it was still, all of a sudden they had perspective because someone
mm,
from the outside came in and sort of steered the company up, because they were looking into their being busy developing more details to whatever thing that they were doing and having even more advanced satellite systems. And it's like, no, make sure that someone buys it. And all of a sudden they started to sell, and because they became focused. And usually that is the ventures that you look into that comes back to you as well, stating that now we tested all the stuff that we had in our agenda and this is the results that we come out with. Those I usually take a meeting with if I have met them before. But it's complicated, and it also needs to be sustainable. It needs to be hardware. It needs to be software components to it. It needs to have a impact kind of sustainable innovation. It has to have IP, or what is the IPR? Are they just like the first mover on the market, or do they have a niche that is like unbelievably complicated to actually get into, and is the market as big as we need it to be? We need it to be at least 2 digit in billions.
yeah.
Otherwise we can't get an exit out of it. So even though it would be like, oh, they had an exit for 200 million euros, and you go like, no, that's not enough. I'm sorry, because
Yes.
it needs to be divided into a lot of people meanwhile. So, but it's an interesting task, and sometimes it's also daunting, because it's
Mm,
also hard to always say no, or have a lot of no's said to you,
mm,
and it becomes also for the entrepreneur or the innovators or the ones that are looking for money, it becomes super. I mean, it's not even tenacity at this point. It's
yeah.
just like, how many rejections can I actually take, because it's so complicated. And in sales, that's all about selling. you have 100 no's and then you have 5 or 10 yays. So that's the game. But the better you are that are looking for money to find the right investor. So I pitched for 120 investors and nobody invested. And I'm thinking, oh, then you didn't pitch for the right ones.
Yeah.
Because that's also a game for you to do research. So make sure that you do your research on who are actually interested in investing, and then understand the scale. We usually invest together with Industrifonden when it comes to deep tech. They usually are on the same page because they now do smaller tickets. They do about 3 to 5 million Swedish krona. Navigar is also someone that we have invested together with. This is Wallenberg's deep tech fund.
Okay.
And it's also coming out a really interesting program now for Vinnova.
Okay.
That are adding more funds to. I think they open up the application now. We've been working on that fund. I've been one of the what do you call it? Anyway, I've been one of the people that they've been asking.
I think there is a new fund as well that the SU Holdings and other companies, because Almi Invest's traditional fund allocation this time went to a different actor, and their focus this time is going to be deep tech going forward.
Well, you have the trio,
trio
universities. Yes, it's KTH, SU, and Karolinska, right?
Yes, think so.
Yeah, that are doing it together. It's called Trio, I believe. They have a bunch of good money. They're only going to do deep tech as well. And Sting has a deep tech incubator as well. So, but in 2016, it was no one who invested in deep tech. I think STOA, Stockholm Business Angel, was the only one doing deep tech that would do hardware together with some of the Linköping angels, I think.
Exactly. And deep tech is so much important. It's different from traditional startup building. I remember because Per Hedberg was here in Connect Talks with me.
Yes,
I'm just thinking just before Christmas, and I'm comparing that because he also did a startup grind talk with me 2 years ago. And then that 2 years ago startup grind talk, our core, if I go back and see what was the main issue that we identified in the ecosystem, that was that deep tech. We are way behind in deep tech, but I think deep tech is being taken on properly. We have a couple of questions coming up, but on, let's say, the previous question as well, I'll give some own tip to any. So the way I get a lot of, I work a lot in ecosystems. There's a lot of pitch decks coming to me, sometimes as entrepreneur or as an ecosystem builder or as an investor. So I've personally kind of structured all my communication to my LinkedIn. So anybody who has to approach me or has to come to an event, wants me to invest in the startup, go in with something, I just drive all my traffic to everything in LinkedIn. It makes it very easy for me. Emails, I think, is very old school medium. It's not interactive. If somebody sends you something and you immediately want to know, okay, this is good, but can you explain this? That doesn't happen on an email. But I'm just going back to the question. I use LinkedIn. Annette explained her hack on how she gets around this. Let's take a question from Boo. He is saying, Hi, Boo. I think we met at Impact Hub a couple of weeks ago. I remember. Hi, pre-revenue means difficulties to evaluate projects. What's your experience and advice?
Okay, say that again. I was reading the line. I'm sorry.
Okay. Hi. Pre-revenue means difficulties to evaluate projects. What is your experience and advice? So, like, what's the hack shortcut that you use, mental shortcut, heuristic? Like, if the revenue indicator is not there, what are the proxies that you are looking at?
Well, usually, like I said before, it's usually they have a pilot. There's a price line on the company. There's an opportunity on the market. We're really looking heavily into market competition. And which segments are in there. If there have been a sale before in the same area, or if it's been some kind of activity in that area. If it's like if it's a super new venture and nothing is going on in that venture so far, usually we look into what they have, post money, if they have a round before. But if you don't have any revenue, you can't up your company like 200% because you've been working on it additional 1 year. You need to prove your sort of set points in validation of the opportunities that you have. Usually that's by contracts or pilots or proficiencies in different. We're not that picky in trying to trash someone's evaluation. We are not that kind of people, but we go like, oh no, that's a little bit too much for us. We
got it.
Come back to us. If you're successful, good for you. But if you feel that there is another opportunity further on, then get back to us and see what we can do. So it's usually of that, because you test things all the time too as an entrepreneur to see if that can my company be more valuable because I've done this and this, and usually yes. If you have pilots, if you have opportunities of revenue in the future, if ABC works, then obviously if you get to that level, the company will be increasing in value. So it's a lot of different things, but just because you have worked a bunch of years, it doesn't give you a salary on that point. That's both the beauty and the curse with being an entrepreneur, that the years that you have put into is not a consulting year. So it's, missed revenue, yes, but not necessarily,
Got it.
I saw a question about space.
Yes, Gab has a question.
That?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
All right. So I've invested in space because I think it's super interesting. This is actually a rocket ship, a Swedish entrepreneur team that are in Bishop, California, or maybe it's in between there in the desert. Anywho, so and they're building their own rocket and they're boiling their own fuel. So that's how crazy it can be. That's my private investment. So that's stuff that I think that, yes, in 3 years, they're going to go up into the moon. They've done so many crazy things. So I don't doubt that they will be able to do this. And that's also a thing over to stretching sort of the boundaries, stretching the thought process of if you could do it or not, if it's valid or not to be able to do it. That's not the point. The point is that you're trying to be there or trying something new to get into it. So Butterfly are looking into space tech. Anti-gravitics, I don't know really if that's sort of in the same space. We're looking into different kind of opportunities, but we're not experts. So we need to become experts with someone coming in with good ventures that we can sort of go through, and we can see if this is something that would be valid for us on the market size, because it's all about the market in itself, how we can actually do what the end game for us will become, which is kind of sad, because when you're an innovator, you think that this is going to be the next big thing. But we also have to have sort of a know-how of the market, what it's looking, not where it's going, but how it's looking. And we understand, obviously, that space innovation has always been good for us here on Earth. We have gotten better solutions out of treating water plants and all kinds of cropping and the materials and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily that it needs to go up in a rocket ship, even though it would be fun.
So the same level of drive or innovation delivers value in other aspects. So
yeah.
Annette, I've put your LinkedIn link over here, and for the community, I've also put my link. And if there are any startups which want to go through the Connect startup programs, which are Sprung Bread, and we now have a fast track. Both of these fall under the hyperdrive that we have created. So you can go ahead and check these sites as well. Let's see there. So we have the answer. Let's see. I have a hand raised somewhere. Cannot identify. Matilda, yes. Do you have a question? Maybe you can post it in the chat if you want to.
I saw some of the people that were introducing themselves, they were doing cybersecurity. And I think that's interesting. We actually invested in 2015. I invested in a company that are very similar to Bank ID, but are for other markets. And just like 2 weeks ago, we finally were able to implement the first ID sort of connection at one of Southeast Asia's largest banks. So now we're in commercial banking in Southeast Asia. Yay! But that's like 2015. And we've been walking. we had an annual meeting last week, and I went down to Skåne because that's where they are located. This is Cover Security. We went down there and sort of, cheered with a glass of water because we don't have any money in the company. No, it's like we've been fundraising so much money into the company to be able to build a solution, rebuild it, build it again, and then also to wait for the bank. Or for the banks, all the other connectors now that we are working with, obviously now we can implement it everywhere. So all of a sudden now it's like shifting like a pancake. It's like now everything is working. Now everything is moving forward, and invoices are getting out, and it's not only us to use other people's money to be able to get it going. And when I went to California in 2016, I had this company with me, and we were introducing them to Apple and Google and Samsung, and we were so far into having our connection into the phones, and then all of a sudden go like, no, we're going to do Face ID instead, so we're not going to do identification on other platforms. And we were like, no. So it's running into all these kind of things when you think that, hey, this is going to be awesome, and then all of a sudden the curtain just like goes down. Nothing.
Annette, very interesting conversation. We are in the last couple of minutes. For the community here, I've also put a couple of links for the community. If you are, for example, a startup, you can explore Connect's startup tracks. And if you're an investor but not yet connected to Connect, I put a link over there. Or if you are an investor and you would want others to join in Connect, please do that. Annette, very important for our community. Annette has also joined us as a board member, and I think I saw Ulufur here as well. He talked about Eastern, so he's also joining. So we are really happy to have the new energy coming in. Annette, with your experience in building startup spaces and all, and I come back from the same ecosystem building experience, what do you think? How investor networks of future need to develop? Any thoughts over there?
Well, since I don't have I always have my angel hat on, but Connect was one of the first sort of networking platforms that I started to network with people in Stockholm specifically. And they had luncheons at Grodan on Turgatan. So we went there every other month, I think. And it was more of an introduction to start to know people. And I think actually I met Jon Snygg there, the now current chairperson, because he was up from north, and we were discussing how we can actually then not only be Stockholm focused, but how can we actually then use the whole country as innovation. And I mapped sort of the innovation system and the meetups places, and this was long time ago, 14, I think, or 14, to see if we could actually, where is the best innovation in the Nordics, or where is the best network? Where should I go if I want to invest in hardware? Which university, which platform, which place should I be? And there is no such thing. It's a collaboration between people. So it's more of like, people to get to the things that you want to have or that you're going to be introduced to. I met Stina Ek in Sverige when her husband, their company was not even 9 months old. And she goes like, we're going to be, the password stick for everyone. And I'm like, that's such low tech to be on like a little stick with all your passwords and so forth. And look at her, so it's my bad that I didn't invest it in them, of course. But at this point where the money that they finally took in, I would be like a puddle in nowhere. So I wouldn't get any money back anyway. But it's sort of to meet the people and create the opportunities, and then also to share, because it's all about group. Again, it's very much for me, it's group, and moving into the future, it's all about finding the community that fits your needs, not necessarily only one, but different of them. So I think that investors need to continue to network with each other. There are a bunch of good opportunities to participate, to share ventures with each other, but also to understand who the same thing as an entrepreneur needs to do. Me as a VC needs to understand where my peers are, so I can actually look into the ventures, but not necessarily just the peers, the ones that are angels that are investing in the companies that I want to invest in the next level. We need to connect, so I know that I have a good deal flow. And the ventures need to go in to find the angels and then the VCs and so forth, so we have a good deal flow. So any kind of platform like you are creating with Nordic Startup and all those Founder Institute and so forth are super, super important. And I can't, but it's also for us to pay for them so they continue, because it's so much work. And Naimul, I know how hard you work, but it's so much work to just keep a bunch of people together. And then when you have all these different verticals that you're supposed to mush together and have like this fantastic salad to serve, and everybody likes, you want to come physical or want to join online. It's after COVID, I think it's really complicated to find the best schmoozing places where you go. We have some kind of SVC, or the private equity group has, breakfasts every month. I usually go to them in the morning, because then I work with my peers. They see that I'm there. I see that they're there. And then we can I have this company, maybe you should do, and so forth. So it's also bringing your portfolio companies with you on networking opportunities, or have them invite them to the ones that you see. I think that's because it's also good to have a warm intro.
It's really good. That's a $1 billion idea. Connect will borrow that from you and saying it here on the platform.
Steal it with
So I
pride.
think, yeah, of course. So I think this is really good. If we could create a kind of a space where you could actually take your portfolios with you and kind of interact, that is not happening.
No.
This could be okay. So I see we have some people from Connect Network here. I saw Boo here as well, who is very active. Thank you, Boo, for your coaching to all our startups and others. Pear is here as well. Pear's from you were on. So we'll try to do. I'll probably create a brainstorming session with our investor community, and we'll do something big to kind of 10x Connect in the next 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
A lot of new ideas. Annette, thank you so much for taking time out today.
Thanks for having me.